Robert, we're so glad you're here. I know you've been with us on these webinars before, and we have a really new, exciting topic to dive into. So I'm just really excited and passing it over to you.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Andrea. And I also want to thank IONS. I've been a member for a long time, and I just love that IONS is investigating the idea of lucid dreaming, because I think lucid dreaming shows us so much about the more accurate nature of reality. And so I'm really happy to have everyone here. So today, our subject matter is lucid dreaming. Can it show us how we create experience? And so we'll get into this as we go along here, but I did want to mention that in the background, probably on the chat, you'll find Ed Kellogg and Jillian Thetford. They're two colleagues of mine who serve as co-instructors oftentimes when I do webinars. And so I always value the viewpoint and ideas of Ed and Jillian. They're just great people and great lucid dreamers. So recently in the mail, I received a book from Andy Clark, who's a professor of cognitive philosophy at the University of Sussex in the UK. And you can see the title of the book. This is the front cover: The Experience Machine: How Our Minds Predict and Shape Reality. And so in the preface of the book, you see this lovely quote from Andy Clark. According to the new theory called predictive processing, reality as we experience it is built from our own predictions. And so it's a wonderful book in providing some of the newer psychological studies about perception and processing of information. And oftentimes, as you read this book, you really wonder, do we experience reality? Or is it more accurate to say that we experience our mind? When we think about the mind, many of us go back to Freud's metaphor of the iceberg, that the conscious mind is everything above the water, about a third of the iceberg. And then immediately below the water is the subconscious or preconscious. And then the bulk of the mind, or the iceberg, is the unconscious processes. And so, of course, Freud developed a psychodynamic process to show how the id and the ego and the superego, along with the libido and instincts and irrational urges, all work together in this viewpoint. But in his idea, Freud put dreaming in the unconscious. He put irrational urges and instincts in the unconscious, slips of the tongue. All that was unconscious territory. But what I want to say is that ever since lucid dreaming came along, I think we have to think about this differently. Because now, with lucid dreaming, we become lucidly aware within what Freud would call the unconscious mind. And so it makes me wonder if lucid dreaming shouldn't be able to illuminate the role of the unconscious in terms of creating experience. And I think it does. So just to get to the definition of lucid dreaming, a lucid dream is any dream in which the sleeper is aware that he or she is dreaming and may be able to influence the progress of the dream narrative. So that's from the American Psychological Association Dictionary. Most of us would say a lucid dream is any dream in which you realize within the dream that you're dreaming. You know, hey, wait a second, how'd I get to Japan? Oh, this is a dream. You know it's a dream. So consider a normal dream. You're walking down the city sidewalks and all of a sudden a dinosaur appears. What do? Normally what you do in a normal dream is you react. You might run away, you might fight the dinosaur, you create a story. Oh, the dinosaur got loose from the museum, or some mad scientist created this dinosaur from DNA strands or whatever. But what you lack in a normal dream is high levels of critical awareness. You just basically go along with whatever happens, and that's where a normal dream takes you. So in a lucid dream, you'd have that moment of realization. You'd go, what? A dinosaur? This has to be a dream. So at that moment that you become lucidly aware, oftentimes you realize that you can make choices. You can fly away. You can punch the dinosaur in the nose. You could ask the dinosaur, hey, what do you represent? And see what it has to say. You can explore, you can experiment. Not only can you do personal experiments, you can also do scientific experiments. But you can use this time to learn about the nature of dreaming, the nature of the unconscious, and also see all the potential that's available within a lucid dream. So I'm sure a lot of you know the scientific proof for lucid dreaming emerges in the late 70s through the work of Keith Hearne at the University of Hull and also Stephen LaBerge at Stanford. But both of them separately came up with much the same idea, that you could validate whether lucid dreaming occurred by bringing people into the sleep lab, putting rapid eye movement polygraph pads on their eyes, and telling them before they go to sleep, if you become lucidly aware, move your eyes left to right 8 times, and that'll create such a unique signal on the rapid eye movement polygraph pad readout that it'll show that you're consciously aware within the dream. And they have these other measures to make sure the person remains in the sleep state. And here you can see the LOC and ROC. And here in the second level, the person's moving their eyes in tandem. Totally unusual. It shows they're lucidly aware. Here in this particular case, on the third bar, we see the eyes moving again left, right, and the person saying, I'm beginning the experiment. And here at the end of the fourth bar, you see the eyes being moved again. I'm ending the experiment. And then you see the person signaling they're going to wake up, and they wake up. So here's a lovely example from one of Stephen LaBerge's papers about how the scientific evidence emerged about lucid dreaming. There's a lot of research on lucid dreaming scientifically. There's just this one that I wanted to show from Ursula Voss in Germany, J. Allen Hobson at Harvard, and others. But they brought a lucid dreamer into the sleep lab. They put a 19-channel EEG, electroencephalogram, skull cap on him. And first they took measurements of when the person was awake, like we are now. And you can see the upper layer of the brain, the cerebral cortex, is quite active. Then they took an image of the EEG of the cerebral cortex when they were having a regular dream, like we would have anytime. And you can see how the cerebral cortex is relatively not very active. But then when the person signaled with their eyes that they were lucidly aware, then we see this appear here in the middle. The cerebral cortex, at least the prefrontal portions, become activated, and they called lucid dreaming a hybrid state of consciousness, because the normal dreaming functions were processing as normal, but aspects of the conscious awareness had also come online. But it's interesting to see there's a lot of research on lucid dreaming, and I always encourage people to explore it. But one question that people often have is lucid dreaming natural? And so I always go to this particular research by Ursula Voss, where she interviewed 694 German school children, ages 6 to 19. And what she discovered was 51% could give her a lucid dream account. And what I found fascinating is that more than 20% of the 8-year-olds could report a lucid dream. So no one had taught them, no one had explained how to work within a lucid dream. It just happened naturally and spontaneously. And so that's the idea that I want to get across in this slide. Also, when people look at lucid dreaming around the world, they'll find that normally if you ask a class of introductory to psychology college students, about 70% in America will report at least having one lucid dream, about 82% in Germany, 73% in the Netherlands, and 47% Japan. But anyway, I just want to get across that it is relatively commonly reported. But when they get to ask, do you have frequent lucid dreams, at least one lucid dream a month, then about 25% of that group says, oh yeah, I have at least one lucid dream a month. So at this point, people often ask, well, why would anyone want to bother with lucid dreaming? And that's why I wrote my first book, just to show the potential of lucid dreaming. And so first I would say you have the capacity to have a lot of fun. And it allows you also to access inner creativity in a lucid dream. Also, when you become aware within a lucid dream, if you know how to do it, you can use it to promote emotional healing. And recently, IONS came out with scientific results of their work with PTSD, people with post-traumatic stress disorder, recurring nightmares, and it showed a profound relief when people started to practice and learn about lucid dreaming in terms of the number of nightmares they reported. They just went down significantly. Also, you can use lucid dreaming, I feel, to promote physical healing, to access an inner awareness, to explore the nature of reality from the inside the dream, and also to perform spiritual practices. So there's a lot of things. It's truly an open platform when you get into lucid dreaming. Now, one thing people who have read my book would know that one analogy I came up with is that the sailor does not control the sea, neither does the lucid dreamer control the dream. So it's true you can influence and manipulate things, but to say that you control it just seems too big of a word. So like a sailor who has to deal with the winds and the currents and their ship and their own sailing ability, normally they'll get where they need to go, but they have to relate to all of that. Also in a lucid dream, you have to, I would say, relate not only to the dreaming, to the unconscious, but also the nature of your own belief system and your mind. So it's not control, it's more aware relating. So here we see an example of this. Let's say you became lucidly aware tonight, and all of a sudden you see a gold window, and you fly through the gold window in your lucid dream. On the other side, you see a castle in the clouds. Now, who created the castle in the clouds? You didn't. You flew through the gold window. So what we see in lucid dreaming is that there's this automatic creativity that's normally ongoing. You're relating to the unconscious, and oftentimes surprising things happen. So relating, yes. Absolute control, no. So now we're getting into personal creativity. So how do you create in a lucid dream? Well, most of us realize that you can intend an action in a lucid dream, but you still have to use your beliefs. So for example, let's say you became lucidly aware and decided to fly through that brick wall to go exploring. Now, if you believe that brick wall is nothing but dream stuff and poses no barrier, you'll fly right through it easily. But if you fly up to the brick wall and believe that it seems hard and durable and very rigid, oftentimes you'll bounce off of that brick wall. So what happens in a lucid dream is connected to your beliefs. And it's like that quote from the New Testament, as you believe, so shall it be. And that's really what you discover oftentimes in the lucid dream state, is that your beliefs frame what is possible within the lucid dream. And so it oftentimes comes back to you to look at your beliefs in order to achieve what you want to achieve. Also, we create our experience within a lucid dream by the use of expectations. So let's say you're flying along in the lucid dream and all of a sudden you see a group of people down on the beach at sunset. Now, if you expect that, oh, these are my friends, they're having a beach party, you'll fly down there and chances are it'll be a friendly group of people getting ready to have a beach party. But if you fly over this group and think, oh, they look like an angry mob, then if you land on the beach, you'll be confronted, chances are, by an angry mob. So in lucid dreaming, you learn that you have to use your expectations. If you don't like what you expect to experience, then you have to flip your expectation to have a different kind of experience. So what you learn in a lucid dream is you get what you expect. And that's just a commonality across lucid dreamers all around the world. The other way that you create within a lucid dream is on how you use your focus. So let's say you became lucidly aware and you flew into a room and you saw these 4 scenes. Well, we have apparently a spiritual gentleman meditating in a cave. Over there, we see 2 people having a passionate tango. Over there on the table, we see a chocolate torte, looks very nice. And then, there on the horizon, there looks like a boat that's getting ready to set sail. What do you, as the lucid dreamer, focus on? So if you're hungry, you might focus on the dessert. Or if you're interested in a passionate relationship, you might focus on the tango. Or if you want to explore something spiritual, you might go talk to the man who's meditating and glowing from within. In a lucid dream, you learn that you need to harness your focus, because what you focus on is where the path of that lucid dream is going to go to. Right now, they're all probable paths, but as soon as you select one, then you've kind of created the next pieces of the lucid dream. So you learn how to use your focus. So in this example, we learn how we create by the use of intent and will. And I remember one of Keith Hearne's first lucid dreamers, Alan Worsley. He was such an experienced lucid dreamer that he said, instead of him flying to that nearby hillside or that nearby castle, he would literally bring the castle to him. Why should he fly? It's a mentally mediated environment. He would just use his intent to bring the castle to him. And so that's another factor that you learn within lucid dreaming, how to use your intent, how to use your will to make things happen by intending them to be or by willing them to come about. So there's wonderful examples of that capacity. But altogether, I would say that lucid dreaming begins to teach us and educate us in how to use the mind. We learn how to use our beliefs, our expectations, our focus, our intent, our will. We learn how to use all of these in order to create experience. And so I believe at a deeper level of the unconscious is also working within this framework of belief, expectations, focus, intent, in order to determine what gets created and exactly how it gets created. Now, within a lucid dream, as I mentioned at the beginning, there's a lot of automatic creativity, and it's oftentimes unconscious creativity. I remember once I became lucidly aware, and I was looking at an angry Rottweiler that was growling and snarling right at me. But because I knew it was a dream, I realized that it's a dream Rottweiler. And so then I had to think, how do I respond to this situation? And so I began to send this angry dog, I began to send it ideas of compassion and peace. And all of a sudden, this angry Rottweiler began to shrink down. And the more I sent it peace and compassion, the more it began to shrink. And suddenly it changed into a little dachshund like we had when I was a kid. And I went and picked it up and took it flying around the dream space. So again, within a lucid dream, you have that capacity of how you want to respond. There was a gentleman named Mike, who was an engineer who I interviewed for our magazine, The Lucid Dreaming Experience. And he told me that his dreams were filled with nightmares and battles all the time. And so because of that, he became lucidly aware as a child in order to deal with all the conflict in his dreams. And so I asked him, well, what'd you do? And he said, normally I'd either fight the angry figure or I'd run away. That's all I ever did in my lucid dreams. But then he said he read my second book and saw that, I had a different way of responding to angry dream figures. You send them what they lack, love or compassion or peace or whatever it was. And he said he began to do that in all of his lucid dreams. And the amazing thing was, he said that suddenly his dreams began to change. His lucid dreams were now becoming much more peaceful and much less aggressive. But he also noticed at work the people that he had problems with, his coworkers, suddenly he wasn't having problems with them anymore. And then his family that he kind of considered a bit dysfunctional, all of a sudden they quit arguing and fighting all the time too. And in fact, they began to explore spiritual pursuits. So again, this resolving things on an inner level by deciding how you're going to respond oftentimes can make dramatic outside changes. And it goes along with that alchemical idea as within, so without. And so it's important to think about how to respond. Now, I borrowed this lucid dream from a book by Charlie Morley, and he writes about a gentleman named Antonio, who was a lucid dreamer. And so one night, Antonio becomes lucidly aware, and he's at a party. And what does he do? He goes, he has fun. He talks to dream figures, he dances, he does all sorts of crazy things. But he notices a woman who keeps following him throughout the lucid dream. And finally, he turns and asks the woman, "So who are you?" And she replies, "I represent your brain. I want you to do us all a favor and stop smoking. It bothers us." And so Antonio was blown away to meet a representation of his brain and also to have this request. And as he thought about it in the lucid dream, he thought, well, wait a second. I've tried to stop smoking, but I always have cravings. So he responded to this representation of his brain. He said, okay, I'll tell you what, if you stop my cravings from occurring, my thinking about smoking when I try to quit, if you can stop that, then I'll try to stop smoking. And she replied, we'll see what we can do. And the gentleman reports that when he woke up, he had no interest in smoking. He could hang out with smokers, no interest in smoking. Again, he responded to this surprising creativity within his lucid dream, and it made a dramatic effect in his waking life. Here we have an example of what I'd call engaging your larger awareness. So a lucid dreamer named Brian A. Hearne, he'd been watching on TV this series on animal migration. And they were mentioning in the series that some of these sea turtles swim about 2,000 miles in order to lay their eggs. And he was just amazed at what these animals were doing by migrating. And so he falls asleep, turns off the TV, falls asleep, and he becomes lucidly aware. And the first thing he thinks in his lucid dream is, why do sea turtles migrate so far? And suddenly, he says in front of him on the table appears what people call Pangea. He said it was a map of the world, but all the continents were smashed together basically into one continent. And some geologists believe that hundreds of millions of years ago, this was the case, that all the landmass had smashed together in Pangea. And he said as he looked down there, he saw a little turtle swim across the bay. So it swam 50 miles across the bay, laid its eggs, and then swam back. And he said as he watched, all of a sudden, Pangea, all this landmass began to separate. And now that little turtle, instead of having to swim 50 miles, now had to swim 500 miles across this much bigger bay as the land masses began to spread apart. And he said as he watched, the land masses kept spreading and spreading, and that poor turtle had to keep swimming further and further to get to the ancestral birthing grounds. And so he said, finally, it got to where the continents are today. And he realized, oh my God, these sea turtles have been doing this for millions of years. They're laying their eggs in the ancestral areas, but those areas have been spread by geological forces. So what this seems to suggest is, first, there's something within the lucid dream that will respond to questions. He asked, why do sea turtles migrate so far? And suddenly he got this deep lesson in geological time. And it also suggests that all of us have this inner awareness, this knowledge, this depth, this creativity that exists within us, But normally we're so focused on what we're doing, we never stop to ask or consider. But in this particular case, just asking resulted in this experience. Here's an example from the online magazine that my friend Lucy Gillis and I create for the past 22 years, the Lucid Dreaming Experience. And it's a free magazine that anyone can get online. So this is the June 2023 issue. And this young guy, Jose Mateo, he wrote to me and he thanked me and Ed Kellogg for helping him overcome a traumatic brain injury. And so about 6 years earlier, something had happened to Jose and he had a traumatic brain injury. And he said his brain was just racked with pain. The doctor told him he probably would not make it. He would probably not survive for another year. There was nothing the doctor could do for him. Jose said he could barely function. It was so painful and so incredible. For some reason, he had the idea that lucid dreaming was the way out of this situation. And so he ordered a bunch of books online and got 2 of my books. And there he read the chapters I have on healing and lucid dreams, much of which is connected with the work by Ed Kellogg. And there he saw examples of people who had had lucid dream healings by virtue of working within a lucid dream to heal a physical problem. And so this is what he did. Using an idea of Ed's, he created a rhyme. And so Jose, in his second lucid dream, he stabilized the lucid dream and he announced, "Let the healing shine to cure my brain with power divine." And suddenly, he said, all of a sudden, it was like he saw this representation of his brain with all this spiked energy emerging from it. And as he made this announcement, "Let the healing shine to cure my brain with power divine," he said, suddenly this energy started to happen, which started to reshape the brain and take care of all these spikes of energy. And he said it was this profound healing light that was making an extraordinary feeling. He said he could actually feel it within the lucid dream. But he said when he woke, he felt like a changed person, like someone had hit reset, and now the pain was gone, his mind functioned properly. When he touched this side of his head, he felt that side of his head. He didn't feel the other side like he had previously. He said it was an incredible healing of his traumatic brain injury. And here it is 6 years later. I believe he has a wife, he has a good job and all that kind of thing. He recovered probably to his doctor's astonishment from this traumatic brain injury. So again, lucid dreaming shows us that there's a dynamic interaction going on. You have these experiences. Sometimes you see automatic unconscious creativity come up from the unconscious, but whatever happens, you have to be prepared and ready to respond. I put this gentleman who's practicing Tai Chi in there as a reminder to what I did about 15 years into lucid dreaming. I began to think that it was all projected mental energy, or mostly projected mental energy. And so in a lucid dream, I would use Tai Chi movements to bring the energy back into myself. And what happened, I remember the first time I did that, I had like 3 more lucid dreams that same night. It was I had collected that projected mental energy of the dream back into myself within a lucid dream. So again, lucid dreaming is extraordinarily profound and deep, especially when you begin to conceptually adjust your thinking. So as I wrap it up here, I think lucid dreaming provides the following. First, it helps us realize that there's automatic inner creativity going on. And oftentimes that relates to you in some way. Also, it allows us to see the potential of working with belief, expectation, focus, intent, and will to create a better experience. In a lucid dream, if you don't like your experience, if you flip your expectations, suddenly it'll change. And that's one of the beauties of it. Lucid dreaming gives you immediate feedback. When your mind changes, the lucid dream changes. And so it shows you that working with the mind is the way to adjust whatever you want to adjust out there. Also, it shows us how to connect with this personal inner awareness. And also, if you prefer, to see yourself in larger terms. Sure, there's the conscious and the ego, Robert Waggoner, but he's connected to a larger awareness. And so sometimes just focusing on that inner awareness that some of us might call intuition or whatever, so sometimes that's the way out. That'll provide us the creativity to move forward. So lucid dreaming provides an education in how the mind works. And also it shows us how we can use lucid dreaming and transfer this to waking via what I call living lucidly. So here's an example of living lucidly. It's just taking the ideas of what you learn in a lucid dream and transferring it to the waking state. So in waking reality, I had hay fever, and it made August and September a real disaster. My sinuses would swell up. I'd cough all the time. My throat wouldn't get shut. It was just horrible. So one day I thought, well, wait a second. I'm telling people that the mind creates. So maybe I should try to heal my hay fever. So this is what I began to do. I began to mindfully recognize every time I had any thoughts about hay fever, any fear or concern, or just even recognition of hay fever. I became mindfully aware of it. And then I began to stop the fear. And I would say, no, not this year. And then I had to tell my unconscious where I wanted to go. And so I said, I would tell myself, this year, I breathe easily and naturally. So I'd mindfully recognize my mind worrying about hay fever. I'd say, no, not this year. This year, I breathe easily and naturally. And within the first year, I had a 70% reduction in symptoms. By the second year, I had a 90% reduction. By the third year, 95% reduction. And nowadays, I don't even think about hay fever anymore because I use living lucidly to heal it. So this brings up even the idea that you can even go beyond lucid dreaming. And that's when you get into some really deep states of interacting with awareness. That's even more profound. But this is what I wanted to get to in today's talk, was just this basic idea of lucid dreaming. And so it shows us how we create experience. And I'm just going to open it up now and bring it back to Andrea, and we'll continue from here.
Excellent. So we've got some amazing questions that are coming in. So thank you. And remember to put your questions in the Q&A box. And we do have just a couple of announcements that we're going to give now instead of at the end, and then we'll come back for your questions as you think about them. So as some of you know, we are hosting a lucid dreaming course. So if you are intrigued and interested and want to dive into the depth of knowledge that Robert and Ed and one other, Jillian, is that right?
Jillian, yeah.
Yes, are going to offer. It begins in just a couple weeks, October 19th. And I've done this course and we've run it several times through IONS. It's really a rich discussion of lucid dreaming and living lucidly. So we really hope that you will join us in this course. We're going to chat out a link now to find that course as well. And finally, IONS free programs, as well as our scientific research, are almost entirely funded by the generous gifts from our members and donors. So just huge thank you to everyone who's on the call and who donates or contributes to the mission in any way, including coming to these webinars, spreading the message of interconnection and the science of consciousness. So we are so grateful for your support of our mission. And if you do feel called, we invite you to go to noetic.org/give to make a gift. So I think those are our announcements. And yeah, we hope that we'll see many of you on this 4-week journey into the depth of lucid dreaming. And is there anything else you want to add about that course, Robert?
No, it's a great course. And what's wonderful is not only do you get my perspective, but you also get the perspective of Ed Kellogg and Jillian Thetford, and they're just fabulous lucid dreamers.
Great. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so let's dive into some questions. I've been reading them and trying to summarize and see really what's the bulk of where the questions are coming. So, first, I want to ask you a question from John, who says, I've been trying to have a lucid dream for well over 40 years. I'm 64 without success. Are there others with similar handicap? And there was someone else who asked, some people have a lot of lucid dreams, some people don't have any. So, can you speak about that spectrum and also any tips you might have?
Right. So lucid dreaming does take practice, and it does take some effort and all. Also, it helps to have thoughtful instruction, because out there on the internet and on TikTok and YouTube and all, you can find some instruction that's so convoluted it'll take you down the wrong path and put you in a bad way. What I would say that for most people, what helps is the power of suggestion. In almost every lucid dream, induction technique is the power of suggestion. And so what I would encourage people is just to work on some sort of power of suggestion, really focus their mind on it before they go to sleep. Like, here'd be one suggestion. Tonight in my dreams, I'll be much more aware. And when I notice anything strange, I'll realize I'm dreaming. So tonight in my dreams, I'll be much more aware. And when I notice anything strange, I'll realize I'm dreaming. Because oftentimes that's what we lack in our regular dreams, is any sense of awareness. We have Tom Cruise, he shows up to deliver the pizza at the front door. You think in your mind, boy, how much do I tip Tom Cruise? And that's where your mind is. You lack critical awareness. You don't stop there and think, wait a second, what's Tom Cruise doing delivering pizza? I mean, that doesn't make sense. So if you tell yourself, tonight in my dreams, I'll be more critically aware, and when I notice anything strange, I'll become lucid, then oftentimes that's all you need. It's just that power of suggestion to move you forward. But good luck with that. And it is true, there are some people who have lucid dreams all the time. Oftentimes, I've found that many of these people had a lot of childhood nightmares, and they learned how to become lucidly aware as a child to deal with the nightmarish figures, whether it was witches or zombies or whatever it was. But just because you become lucid doesn't mean you conceptually understand all of your potential within a lucid dream. Because oftentimes those people who have had 10 or 20,000 lucid dreams, they'll come and ask me, now, how do you heal your bad knee? I don't get it. And so again, quantity is one thing, but having a quality lucid dream is really what I'm after.
Absolutely. That's great. And actually, I wanted to ask you about nightmares, because that was a common theme, both in the chat and the questions. And maybe I'll just read a couple little snippets. So Jennifer says, I only seem to have violent or scary dreams. Is this something that I will be able to do? So dreaming actually scares me. And then let me put one more in is, how can we control what to expect in the dream? And are there existing evil that's not just due to our projection of our own negative feelings in the dream? So just how do we deal with kind of nightmares or scary figures in the dreams?
Right. A few months ago, I was doing a workshop, and a young person told me they wanted to have a lucid dream, but they did not want to recall their dreams because all their dreams were negative, scary, and whatever. And so I told the young person, I said, look, just do the practice. Here's the introductory techniques, just do them. And within a week or two, that person had a lucid dream. And they were blown away that they were aware they were dreaming. They had some influence. They could decide what they wanted to do. And I think that's probably changed the nature of their dreaming, because that's what they discover when they teach people who have recurring nightmares from PTSD. They teach them to become lucidly aware just once and change any little thing, and suddenly their nightmares plummet. They'll become almost non-existent. And so again, I think it's kind of like that recurring nightmare is trying to get you to make a new response instead of flying or fighting. If you become lucid and just change one thing or laugh in the face of the monster, then the nightmares plummet. So again, I think we can see that, yes, for some people, their dreams are scary. But again, if we don't resolve this, let's say you're 20 years old and your dreams are scary. You have 40, 50, 60 years of dreaming ahead of you. And are you really going to become out of touch with that inner resource and creativity? It's really a shame to do that. So in the course, of course, we'll get into these kind of issues of how to resolve scariness and fear. But in terms of how we can control, I think I explained in this last seminar here how we control. We use our beliefs, our expectation, our focus, our intent. In the mental realm of a lucid dream, you learn how to use your mind. And so by using your mind, you begin to take control of things, or at least begin to influence things. That's one reason I really love having Jillian as one of my co-instructors. She said as a young person growing up, she had developed anxiety and had occasional panic attacks. But in her lucid dreams, she began to see how her mind works. And if you let the beliefs this is going to get worse and worse and worse and worse, if you let that belief just run unchecked, you're going to have a panic attack. Or if you let that expectation run unchecked. And so she began to see that, oh yeah, this is just like a lucid dream. I've got to mindfully observe my mind and not let it get out of bounds. And by doing that, she was able to stop panic attacks and anxiety. So again, you learn this. It doesn't happen often in the first lucid dream, but over the course of time, you see the points that I've tried to make in this lecture.
Excellent. Excellent. So we do have several questions around kind of the spiritual nature and lucid dreaming. And so someone was asking about psychic abilities, another person out of body. And then this question from Tim says, do you think lucid dreaming can be a complete spiritual path to lead us all the way to enlightenment or spiritual awakening? So what's the intersection of lucid dreaming and maybe a spiritual path?
So a lot of wisdom traditions use lucid dreaming. A lot of shamanic and native traditions have used lucid dreaming for thousands of years as a spiritual practice. In Buddhism, for 2,000 years, they've used it as Buddhist dream yoga. And Naropa said that one of the 6 paths to enlightenment was Buddhist dream yoga. And so in Sufism, it's used as a way to connect to the divine. It's in Taoism. It's just all over the place. So I think lucid dreaming can make for a wonderful spiritual path, because one thing it often shows us is our limiting beliefs and ideas. And I remember as a young person starting out in lucid dreaming in 1975, I didn't really have any teachers or anything, but occasionally I would see how my lucid dreams were asking me to break my limiting beliefs, because I couldn't grow if I didn't break those beliefs. Also, it showed me that I had to resolve my fears, because if I didn't resolve my fear, I would just always stay in this really small cocoon. But when I resolved the fear, now I could grow and explore more. And in fact, later in my lucid dreaming, I would hear the words trust, nothing to fear. Or I'd see a banner in the sky in the lucid dream, trust, nothing to fear, that just basically encouraged me that the more you learn to trust, the more you're willing to explore. So lucid dreaming has a lot of capacities. I don't know if it leads to psychic ability as much as it leads you to a realization that you exist within an interconnected oneness. And so picking up intuitive information doesn't seem that odd. Sending yourself into the future to experience a certain date, within an interconnected oneness, that doesn't seem odd. But if you focus just on the ego conscious self, then that seems almost impossible. So again, I think it's a matter of realizations as you go along. When it comes to out-of-body experiences, out-of-bodies are kind of a different thing. A lucid dream, you realize within a dream you're dreaming, but in an out-of-body, you might have a heart attack and suddenly you're floating on the ceiling, watching the nurses and doctors try to revive your heart. Or an out-of-body might occur as you're falling asleep and start to hear all this humming and buzzing and weird energy. And now you see your bedroom from 6 feet above your bed. And, how did I get up here? That's not realizing within a dream you're dreaming. So they have some commonalities, but they're obviously distinct phenomena.
That's great. I do see some questions coming in about the course itself. Someone asking if there will be techniques, and then someone else asking if there's live sessions or pre-recorded. And I just wanted to say a note, there will be both live and pre-recorded, and even the live sessions will be sent out in the recording. And he was asking about time zones. So, and you can send your questions in. So go ahead.
Yeah. Also during the webinar, you can submit your questions in the Moodle forum, and then Ed and I and Jillian can respond, and other participants will oftentimes add their shared experience. It's a really lively place. It goes on 24/7, and people have a lot of fun. I know Ed and I and Jillian really enjoy it. And there are a lot of techniques, and also a lot of explanation of why certain things work and certain things don't work.
Great. And we have some people asking about how to induce more even just dreams. Someone said, I can't remember my dreams. Do I have any hope for lucid dreaming? So how does the relationship between our own dreams and any techniques to bring more?
Right. So you're right. Some people have gotten out of the habit of remembering their dreams. All of us dream each night. About 2 hours of the night actually is spent in dreaming. So what I would suggest, if you don't seem to recall your dreams, is before you go to sleep, tell your dreaming self, hey, I'm ready to recall a dream. So tonight, give me a dream that'll make me feel joy inside. Let me have a joyful dream, and that'll help me return to dreaming. And oftentimes, just asking to have a joyful dream, you might hear incredible music, you might see a loved one, you might find yourself in your childhood park having fun with your friends, whatever it is. But if you can add joy into it, oftentimes it makes it easier to begin to get back on the dreaming path.
Amazing. I like that. Asking for a joyful dream. Yeah, I'm going to try that out too. We have a few questions about bridging into waking life. And I know that's partly what we're talking about today and also in the course. So Deb says, do you have a template or instructions for bridging dream material to situations in waking life? So maybe you can talk a little bit more about that lucid livingly part of the course and what you teach.
Right. So I think my early fascination with dreams started because as a young person, I would have dreams like I'd hear someone say an interesting phrase, and then 3 hours later, I'd be awake and out on the playground, and one of my little 9-year-old playmates would say that interesting phrase. And I thought, whoa, I heard that in a dream this morning. How am I hearing that now again in the waking? So I would say that naturally, dreaming and waking are integrated. But oftentimes we've divorced the two because we don't pay attention to our dreams and are disconnected. In living lucidly, we begin to take the principles and ideas of what we discover in the lucid dream state and begin to bring them into the waking world. And so, for example, there was a woman who reported that in a lucid dream, she was flying around, and every time she began to expect trouble because she flew too high, she'd plummet to the ground. And every time she'd fly up and get too high and expect to have trouble, she'd plummet to the ground. And she began to see that her expectation really mattered. And so later that week, she was in the waking world interviewing for a job, and suddenly they asked her a difficult question. And she realized that if I answer this way, I'm going to plummet, but if I answer this way and give them an expectation of my capacity to do it, then that'll be much better. And so she gave a positive expectation and ended up getting the job. So again, it's really beginning to see, how does the mind work? And when you begin to understand how the mind works, you can begin to influence the nature of your waking reality to better align with what it is that you want in this world.
Excellent. Yeah, it's so great to be able to bridge the inner experience and then how we take that into our life. So it's important. And we have from Gerard, it says, my lucid dreaming dreams usually finish very quickly. No time to spin or touch something or anything. So any tips for this situation?
Right. So that's a very common feature, especially of beginning lucid dreamers. If you don't get it resolved quickly, then it becomes a belief that, oh my God, my lucid dream will only last 10 seconds. Now I got to do everything really hurry. Boom. So what I encourage people to realize is that there's a way out of this. And that's by, again, using your beliefs, your expectation, your focus and intent. So when you become lucidly aware, tell yourself, calm down, stay calm. Anything that you think or express in the lucid dream normally will come to be immediately. So if you tell yourself, calm down, no worries, in the dream state, nothing to worry about, suddenly that'll reduce a lot of the emotional tension that oftentimes pops us out of lucid dreams. Then you can begin to enhance your awareness. You can rub your hands together and have that kinesthetic feeling of your dream hands rubbing together. That'll make the lucid dream seem more stable. You can ask for greater clarity or something like that. And you can begin to focus, okay, what was it that I wanted to achieve in a lucid dream? And so sometime it might just be to explore or to ask a dream figure, what do you represent? But the thing has to be that you have to learn how to calm down when you become lucidly aware. So if there's a knock at the door and it's Tom Cruise delivering a pizza and you become lucidly aware, stop looking at Tom Cruise and thinking about getting an autograph or a selfie. It'd be a dream selfie anyway, and you're not going to have it in the morning to share on Facebook. Instead, look at your hands, look at the floor, something boring, tell yourself calm down, and that'll stabilize the lucid dream. But there's a lot of ways to go beyond that, of course, and there are ways to get over that hurdle because I've helped instruct people how to go about that.
Amazing. So we have just a few minutes left. So this will be maybe our last question here before we end. But we have a question about if past lives can present themselves in lucid dreams. And someone else was asking about ancestors. Can we call upon ancestors? So I'd love to hear your input.
Right. So with ancestors, here's what I would say. Oftentimes people in the lucid dream state, they become lucidly aware when they meet deceased loved ones and relatives. And it was funny, I began to notice sometimes in my lucid dreams, I'd see this woman who had these little pixies and elves flying around her head. And then I realized, oh my gosh, this is my grandmother, but she looks like she's age 30. I only knew her when she was 60, 70, 80 years old. I didn't know her as a 30-year-old woman, but now she's passed on. And now she's going around as a 30-year-old woman who has pixies and elves fly around her head because she grew up, or she's mostly Scottish and all. So oftentimes we become lucidly aware when we meet a deceased loved one. And so it's a prime opportunity to engage them and ask a question. What do you have to tell me? Or tell me something about the family. Just don't sit there and become a puddle of tears of an emotional reunion. You know, get a gift from that lucid dream. But also when it comes to this idea of past lives, I've explored this very deeply for about 9 months. In all of my lucid dreams, I asked to experience a past life aspect and had some really fascinating experiences. And some of them I could actually even validate by seeing the geographical area and then going to that same geographical area that really hasn't changed that much over the course of 300 or 400 years. So again, lucid dreaming is a profoundly deep path. And that's why I love having a 30-day online class so I can help express that along with Ed and Jillian and their experiences. It's truly a profound pathway for people to explore these kind of questions and go deeper into the nature of their self and also the nature of reality. So again, I want to thank IONS for hosting this, and it's so much fun. I hope some of you will come to the webinar, or not to the webinar, to the online course. One thing that I really like about IONS is IONS allows people to give self-scholarships So if the financial aspect is difficult, you'll see there's a button for a self-scholarship, and that can kind of help defray a lot of the costs. So thanks to IONS for having that ability.
Great. Well, thank you, Robert, so much. I just put the link in to the chat. Some people were asking about time zones and dates, and so all that information is on the website. So go there to check it out. And we just really appreciate just the wisdom that you bring and all your experience that you have put together in this beautiful webinar and also course for us to experience and really go deeper as a community of noetic explorers. So we're so grateful. And do you have any kind of last comments before we close today?
I just want to send everyone lucid wishes and hope to see them later. And we'll look forward to answering some of these questions, hopefully in the online forum during our course. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you again soon. Bye for now.